and welcome to Service Never Sleeps Book Talk series, where we feature and amplify authors in their racial justice space as an opportunity to learn from their important insights. Service Never Sleeps is a Black-led organization that empowers justice-minded individuals with the tools and posture to be effective allies and to advance equity within their spheres of influence. These book talks serve as an opportunity for our larger SNS community to deepen their racial justice journey through learning and action, both of which are critical for driving change. I'm Whitney Parnell. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder and CEO of Service Never Sleeps. I'm a Black woman with brown skin. Today, I have on a silk maroon shirt with a collar. I also have on a necklace that is a Ghanaian Adinkra symbol that stands for leadership and greatness. My hair is up in a puff, and I've got on earrings that are Black with a Black woman's silhouette that has an afro. One side of the earrings is Black, the other side has red maroon as the face and afro, and like gold yellow as the neck. So that is how I'm presenting visually. And I am so excited to be engaging my friend, Gabriela Alcalde, for our first ever book talk. Gabriela, it is such an honor to have you here to discuss your incredible book, What Your Comfort Costs Us. But before we get into that, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Gabriela? It's an open-ended and loaded question, so please respond with what feels most important for you to lift up in this moment.
Thank you, Whitney. First of all, I'm super excited and honored to be invited into this and to just share space with you as always. I'll start with a visual description. My name's Gabriela Alcalde. My pronouns are she and ella. I am a 52-year-old Peruvian woman with light olive skin, dark brown graying hair. I'm wearing dark green glasses. I have a black top with little white dots all over it and white earrings. And I'm wearing some lipstick today for a special occasion. Who am I? Uh, I am a human in becoming constantly.
Mm.
I feel like I've pretty much been the same humans at the core. But there's constant becoming. And I think some of the pieces that have really shaped who I am. First, yeah, my Peruvian culture, which is a mestizo culture with both indigenous and European and also Afro-Peruvian influences, come from a coastal desert mega city of Lima, um, where I grew up with tremendous structural violence, with terrorism and narco traffic and yeah, a lot of the impacts of colonization really alive around me. And then I moved around a lot as a child. My father was repeatedly applied to scholarships, and so my entire family relocated between the United States and England and Peru throughout my childhood. So I moved a lot. I entered and exited schools at weird times. I didn't speak English when I first left Peru, so I was a child who was thrown into very different school systems in language and culture that I did not understand. And slowly over the years, I became an immigrant. And that experience of becoming an immigrant has significantly shaped who I am, and how I engage with the world. I would say that to summarize, I've had a lot of experience of being othered and, never fitting neatly into any one category. And that has both given me a sense of sometimes being excluded, but also provided me with a lens of I can see the sort of the vastness of options and worlds in front of us. I've never been prone to seeing things as only visible or doable in one way, and I'm grateful for that. So yeah, I would say I am, as all humans are, complex and striving to simplify.
And what was the language that you used in terms of becoming?
A human in constant
In
becoming.
becoming, yes, yes, that's such wonderful language. So thank you for that
Oh.
vocabulary because it really holds that both end of your core
Yeah.
foundations while also
Yeah.
recognizing that there's
Yeah.
constant evolution there.
Yeah. We're grounded and stumbling all at once.
Yes. Holding that both end is a constant thing.
Yes.
As you share, I can't help but also want to just raise the question of how you're doing.
Hmm. Hmm. It's been hard.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. I have many privileges, so I
Mhm.
can only, you know, fathom without the levels of privilege that I have, what it would feel like, what this country has become. There's definitely been a lot of flashbacks to my childhood and how the terror was right outside my door and that there were no systems that really could be trusted. So I think that that's been coming back a lot. It's also extremely clarifying because, I've been having conversations where some people say, I just can't believe that this is the United States. And then others, primarily with people of color, where we've said, actually, this is just barely different than what it's been since the founding of this country. So while there is more violence, it's more explicit, it's more apparent. What's underneath hasn't really changed. So in some ways, I have this feeling similar to the way I felt during the COVID pandemic of pulling back the veil. There has been this veil of, a democracy, this like peaceful country, but that's not really what was ever happening, right? And so in some ways, the the violence that has been very apparent lately is just pulling back the veil of what many communities have had to live with, and frankly, the roots of the injustices that all of us have been dealing with in this country and globally now.
Thank you for that language around pulling back the veil. Also, even in speaking to what is happening in society right now, drawing those parallels to what you were even saying personally about,
Mm.
recognizing the challenges and what that implies about systems and its impacts, but also how clarifying that is and how that really
Mhm.
positions you to be able to work toward this world of justice and shared humanity
Mhm.
that we seek. And that's very much what I felt when I was reading your book. I think about how I believe I read it for the first time a year ago and was like, this is right on time. This is exactly what we
Oh.
need to be talking about. And then sitting with, as I was revisiting it in preparation for this conversation, being like, this is right on time. This is exactly what we need to be talking about. And so, really, the evergreen nature, not just of this
Mhm.
book's application, but to exactly what you're speaking to around really the systems that are presenting themselves and the opportunities that we have to really
Yeah.
pursue them equitably when centering the folks who are positioned to do that well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, on that note, can you just tell us what your book is about?
Mm. That's so funny. This always stumps me because there was like what I felt I was doing while I was writing it, and then there's what I
Ooh.
realized I had done once I finished it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what I thought I was doing while I was writing it was in part catharsis. It was just my experience as a leader of color, the first one in the organization I was leading
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic, and just sort of again, talk about clarifying, like the clarifying recognition of patterns of, oh, this isn't just happening to me. This isn't just about the organizations where I've worked. There are patterns here, and I can see their roots. And the workplace is just a microcosm of our society, right? So there's all these nested systems, and I'm just being
Mm-hmm.
exposed to it at work, where we, on average, spend about a third of our lives in this country. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, right
Mm-hmm.
in front of me and wanting to connect with others who had that experience and to use storytelling, such a basic human need and way of connecting, as a way to humanize our experiences and to humanize the receiver of the stories, to
Mm-hmm.
allow for some actual connection.
Mm-hmm.
What happened when I finished the book and I asked a couple of people to review it, and one of them, a friend in common that we have, Yannick Redwood. She was one of my first two readers,
Yes.
and she asked me, "Who is the audience? Like, who
Mm.
do you want to read this for the
Mhm.
impact that you foresee?" And you would think that's a simple question, but I was actually really challenging because
Mm.
in my mind, when I was writing it, it was for other women of color, for other people of color
Mhm.
in general, but specifically like at the intersection of race and gender. I was like, that's
Mhm.
I really want this as a gift of like, you're not alone. It's not you. It's the system, and we can witness each other. We can support each other. We can uplift each other and advance each other. But when Yannick asked me that question, I actually reread my manuscript because I wrote the whole thing before having a publisher. So, so I reread what I had written and I was like, oh man, I was wrong. The women of color know these stories. So hopefully it's
Mhm.
vindicating and it's affirming and maybe it's like a warm embrace to read,
Mhm.
but also it can be re-traumatizing to
Mhm.
read these stories. Who really needs to read it and who the gift of the book is for people who identify as white because they do
Mhm.
not have the access to these lived experiences. And
Mhm.
the book is really a bridge. How can we act in a way beyond our own experience? And in this
Mhm.
country where we're so segregated, where you can spend your entire life never encountering, at least with any intimacy, someone with significantly different life experiences, we need
Mhm.
bridges, we need storytelling, and we need these types of compassionate offerings. And I think compassion should be firm and direct. So the book is firm and direct, but also full of love.
Mhm.
So I realize that really this book is primarily for people who identify as white, who do not have access to the experiences we have that allow us to see the world through the multitude of realities that exist out there. So it's an offering of almost like embody the world that we live in which sci-fi is
Ooh.
real. Sci-fi is life. And we are constantly assessing the multiple timelines that can evolve in our becoming based on how we're perceived, based on how we might appear a certain day. I had a conversation where we talked about code switching being more than words,
Mhm.
right? The way we pay attention to the way we dress. You were describing yourself the way you were dressed, and I was thinking like we're both wearing earring, and like that is such a big part of how I present myself in the world. I love adorning my body, and that is a cultural thing. And the way I walk, like because I moved around so much as a child, I started to recognize that different cultures had different walks. And code switching is so global in how we inhabit our bodies. So code switching is a survival mechanism,
Mhm.
trying to make ourselves safe because we know those who hold most power are constantly assessing us, and difference is assessed as threat.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are some of the pieces that you asked that question that just popped for me in sort of in my body.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I was getting so much from you about what inspired the book when you were just letting it all out, then going back to think about what your intention was with the book and everything in between that came
Mm.
with that. And you had such great quotes here. One of the ones that I just have to live up and I think was an important theme in the book was compassionate offerings. And I love how
Mhm.
you say that that's with love and that being firm and direct is love. Because talk
Yeah.
about code switching and being a
Yeah.
woman of color and just the type of labor and mental gymnastic
Yeah.
that goes into how to
Yeah.
just lead and speak as a leader without all that's going to come. And especially
Mhm.
when you're firm and direct, what that can be
Mhm.
received as. So
Yeah.
I love that you stood on the fact that actually that is love and that is a
Yeah.
compassionate offering to give you that authentic self. So
That's great.
thank you for that. And going into that a little bit more, what I really appreciated about your approach to this book was that it was grounded in qualitative research and
Mm.
talking to so many other women of color while tying in your own experience. And I'm just curious, how was it for you to just navigate doing that? And what was
Mm.
it like to synthesize? Were there any areas where you were having to compare what was different for you compared to what over like larger data was indicating? I'm just curious about what it was like to be
Mm.
alongside that research.
Yeah. I mean, from the logistical perspective, it was challenging because I was doing a full-time job. I was raising my kids and also like trying to, so it was like evenings and weekends was
Mhm,
when I did it. So there's that piece of it, just to be really real about it, because that's how many of
mhm,
us are, right?
mhm,
Creating these additional things. Um,
mhm,
Somebody asked me at the end of one of the interviews I did, how are you taking care of yourself as you receive
mhm,
all these stories?
mhm,
And it made me pause. It was another one of those things that just like has stayed with me because
mhm,
as so many of us do, and it comes through in the book through the stories, we just have this purpose that it's not just professional, it's not theoretical, it is like our
mhm,
life purpose. You know, we feel
mhm,
driven to
mhm,
make a better world. In
mhm,
part because of I am so deeply grateful for all the humans that had to exist and survive for
mhm,
this body to be possible.
mhm,
And so I have a sense of responsibility of making the most of my time here, um, and to make the world better for who else is going to come in the future. You know, I want to dream. I don't want to be stuck on like what's possible in front of me. And I had to really sort of pause and think about how much I had gotten used to just taking in pain, my own and other people's pain, and just holding it. And that I just felt like that was part of what I was here to do. And so, to be honest, since finishing writing the book, I have been really um, processing that and trying to shed some of that affinity for pain. um, I think I just felt like, well, I'm strong enough and I can take it, so I will. And
mhm,
really questioning that in myself and in the concept of leadership and particularly in the concept of women of color leading,
mhm,
and how we have been conditioned that self-sacrifice is part of our existence.
mhm,
And I reject that. And I've always
mhm,
rejected that intellectually. I did not reject that in practice.
mhm,
And so that question has really sat with me and has made me rethink how I take care of myself and to not think of that as a selfish act or as a time wasting act, but
mhm,
really an essential core part of how I show up in the world. That the way I am, the way I
mhm,
do being is actually integral and foundational to anything else I do.
mhm,
So for me, it became an exercise of how do
mhm,
I take care of myself and how do I love myself the way I want to love others?
mhm.
How do I start with self-compassion? And I think I'm still digesting that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm really appreciating you uplifting the fact of one, the expectation of sacrifice, also providing the nuance around the fact that while we should care for each other, there is this disproportionate expectation from women of color to do a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
caretaking
Yes.
and the kind of sacrifice involved with that sacrifice of self to, hold the space for the other, but also just what it does to be absorbing all of that. So thank
Mhm.
you for naming that. I know you said you're processing now what it was like to hold all of that and that you were thinking about what it looks like to reject it, to reject in practice as well, having to
Mhm.
hold all of that. What does it even look like to start trying to receive the practice and actually practice? I'm really
Mm.
curious about what that process looks like, even if there's no end point in terms of
Yeah.
destination.
It's big and little things. I mean, one thing is that I've discovered that comfort with receiving is like a personality trait. I didn't
Hmm.
Realize that. And my sons are
Wow.
both really uncomfortable with receiving. And so I've had to explore that in myself
Wow.
and to query, like I have such joy when I give to people
Mhm.
and recognizing that I have denied that to others
Mhm.
because my discomfort with receiving,
Mhm.
this sense that I've been told, oh, you're so strong. I mean, that's the nicer version of like you're so scary and intimidating, but there's always like you're a lot kind of feeling.
Mhm.
So back to the code switching and making ourselves safe.
Mhm.
A way that I've maybe subconsciously made myself safe is by saying, okay, this bigness is going to be used for being able to take in a lot of stuff and just give out lots of love and
Mhm.
hold things for people and not ask for anything. So
Mhm.
the practice is like literally listening to my body. I mean, I think the simplest way I can put it is like I actually spend time listening to my body. So I've had
Mhm.
to pay attention to what other like sounds there are in my living space. Do I actually give myself time to listen to what's happening in my body and what my body is asking for? Is it asking me to lay down? Is it asking me to, because to drink because I'm dehydrated? Is it
Mhm.
asking me to dance because I need to metabolize something through movement? Is it asking me to reach out to a friend and ask for help because I am really in need of companionship or community? Is it asking me to eat differently?
Mhm.
So I've been doing a lot of body-based practices because
Mhm.
I've also, again, something I knew but didn't fully inhabit was I've been rewarded for my brain. My brain is very limited. My
Mhm.
body carries wisdom that my brain can't fully capture, right? Because of epigenetics, because of ancestors, however you want to understand it, scientifically or spiritually, both have so much evidence that our bodies are actually carrying so much forward from what's happened
Mhm.
before. And so I've been giving myself more time, more space, more disciplined practice of actually caring for my body and listening to it and allowing my body to lead. And
Wow.
that I have to tell you, I have so much more peace um, in my life, and I am able to handle things that come at me in a very different way because of the compassion that I show myself, starting with the acknowledgement that I am a physical mortal being with a finite, expiration date that will happen, and I need to treat my body with the respect and care that I treat other people's bodies. And I wasn't quite doing that. And I think it's not to accuse myself or blame myself because frankly, we're conditioned to do that. Uh, there's a gendered part, there's a racialized part, there's a cultural piece of being a Latin American woman, there's a cultural piece of being an immigrant, there's a piece about
Mhm.
being a very tall woman with a deep voice and what that signals to others and what that makes others feel about me and how I perceive that and want to shrink myself to seem less threatening. Um, so yeah, there's just that's what I mean by becoming. I mean, I feel like all of that has always been true, and I am meeting myself differently.
Thank you so much for that, Jim. I was just really appreciating the centering of the body. And
Mm.
I've been leaning more into not just saying out loud, but giving myself the right to trust that gut. And
Yeah.
that
Yes.
honestly, I find my gut to be stronger than anything else when it comes to intuition and
Yes.
knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So
The
I
gut
just really,
knows.
yes, I appreciate the disruptive nature because to be honest, I think a lot of folks would answer that question very heady, right? So
Mhm.
this is what I do now, and this is how I try to unlearn and think about things. And I just love that you really focused it on your body practices and listening to your body. I loved even your narrative around, is my body asking this? Because it also indicated that the body knows. The
Oh
body
yeah.
often knows
Yes.
way before the
Yes.
brain does. So thank
So
you
much.
for that's such a
Yeah.
beautiful offering for me. And I hope to our
Oh,
listeners as well as something to take away from this.
good. And I'll just tie it back to the book a little bit that there's a big theme around women of color being so highly educated that we
Mhm,
always feel like we have to overfunction. So we get
mhm,
more education, we get, every training possible. We're always
mhm,
doing, everybody talked about like I have to be twice as good, I have to be 10 times
mhm,
as good, like
mhm,
whatever the number is.
mhm,
And then, but when we talked about leadership and what brought them like joy, and when they dream of what the world that we're trying to birth collectively is like, it had nothing to do with education or their brain. It had to do
mhm,
with movement, and somebody that read part of the book before it became a book asked me, like, what do you mean by movement? And it was interesting because the women of color that reviewed it, nobody asked me that because we all know what that means. The
mhm,
way we move is who we are. The way we move in the world, that is our rhythm. That is what is sacred about us.
mhm,
We don't have to explain that to each other. And so I started sitting with that sort of that bifurcation of like,
mhm,
we're being rewarded for this, and this is what we're killing ourselves doing, because getting all that education uses a lot of resources, like energy, emotional, of course, the cost of it, the time.
mhm,
But we know that our true wisdom is in how we move in the world. And
mhm,
that comes from our bodies. That comes from what's been
mhm,
handed down to us. It comes from the experiences that our brains are too limited to fully be able to capture or put into words.
mhm,
And so that's partly what brought me to like I've known this, but I haven't paid attention to it because I've been stuck on this like need to prove and
mhm,
need to meet these like external criteria of what makes a smart person or a leader or a successful person. And that always feels like empty calories. But the way we move, like even like the look on your face when I said that, you knew exactly what I meant. And
yes,
it's like
yeah.
it touches you. You're like, ah, yes, you
Mhm,
know?
yeah. And to
And
have it
so
named.
yes. So
Mhm,
rather than trying to translate myself into a language that is
mhm,
legible to a system that is trying to oppress me and dehumanize me, I want to stay in the language that is true to me. And that is the language of my body. That is the language of movement. And that is the language of that there's probably not words for, even though I love writing. And I think that is part of like trying to bring words to something that is beyond words is a beautiful challenge that I'm happy to take on. And I think you are too, as also a published author.
Just trying to learn from the greats like you. And this, I'm so appreciating this because as I was reading this, it very much felt like a gift that spanned across identity, like for as a Black woman, right? The gift of just validation and relatability, and also just deepening around where do I still have some unlearning to do? How can I learn from other women of color leaders? But to your point as well, the other gift here is that you are gifting white folks this, what is embodying of the world we live in. I love that quote. And with this gift of this embodiment, Service Never Sleeps focus is on building allies. And we
Mhm.
believe that all folks of all identities can be allies in their areas of privilege. When you think intersectionality, solidarity, certainly. And particularly with racial justice allyship, there is a responsibility that white folks have.
Yeah.
And with that being said, as an org that trains specifically to build allies, do you have any particular advice about
Mm.
what allies can take away from this book?
I think part of it is just like, just start. Like,
Mm,
don't get stuck in overwhelm. That is privilege,
mhm,
you know? I think I share this story in the book, but one of my kids came home one day from a school training on allyship, and they were really frustrated. And of course, I was like, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" Like,
mhm.
why are you frustrated? And their frustration was actually they were like, one, they were basically speaking to the white kids,
Yeah,
and they weren't paying mind to the few
yeah,
kids of color there, so that felt weird.
yeah.
And then, his perspective was They're basically just telling us to be decent human beings. How is that a thing that we need to be told to do? So I think that's part of it is like you're not being asked to be a hero. We're not asking you to jump in front of bullets. Like that's not what's being an ally is or acting in solidarity.
Mhm.
You're being asked to be a human being who recognizes other people's humanity.
Mm.
And if you believe in that, if you believe in seeing and treating people with full humanity, then you want to be an ally. You want to learn how to practice this. And so I love what Service Never Sleeps does because it makes it tangible and it makes it concrete, which is why I chose stories,
Yeah,
right? I use qualitative research, but I didn't present it from my researcher brain. I presented it from my
sure.
human self of stories because humans learn through stories, they learn through doing, they learn through practice. So what Service Never Sleeps is helping to translate that into like here's what we mean. You know, like I always need to do things. Like if you explain it to me, I'm like, okay, but like, can I now do it? Like, I need to
Mhm.
move through that for my body to actually learn it and to take away some of that fear. Because I think there's a lot of fear, back to the point about how segregated this country is, whether you're white or not. Like, we're all segregated, so we don't tend to be around people who are not like us.
Mhm.
So the practice of allyship is particularly important when we are
Mhm.
not exposed to difference on a daily basis, when
Mhm.
our mind and our body has not been shaped by the multiple possibilities that are actually real and true in the
Mhm.
world. And we think that this is how the world is, and that's how we move through it. We end up running over people because we
Mhm.
can't see them. We haven't been trained to see things. So
Mhm.
I think allyship training and allyship work is about learning how to see the multiple
Mhm.
realities out there so you don't
Wow.
accidentally run over people. I still believe that most humans are inherently not horrid people. You know,
Mhm.
I think people have good intentions. I think too many of us don't understand the difference between intention and impact. And we
Mhm.
want to claim our intention and we want to distance ourselves from the impact. And I think
Mhm.
allyship is inviting us into loving accountability of actually, we need to own both.
Yeah.
Yes, your intention is important, but the impact is what others have to live with.
Mhm. Thank you for that. I'm so appreciating that so much about the very essence of this book is disruptive. Like, I love
Mhm.
how you said you approached this as research, but made the disruptive choice
Mhm.
to center narratives and to really move people through stories and through
Mhm.
humanity. And what I'm also just hearing from you is that's, and this aligns with some of what we talk about. Everybody's always like, I need to learn what to do. And yes, there are things that you can do after you have learned what needs to be done from centering those impacted. But we're often like, a lot of allyship is preventative work. So, how do you
Uh,
prevent yourself from
yes,
causing the very harm
yes,
that then requires the work to be done?
yes,
And it feels like this
yes,
book is a resource that literally lays out for
yeah,
folks all the preventative work that they could do so
yes.
that women of color can lead effectively in the way that would allow them to benefit too.
And without being burdened with having to bear our scars to prove our
Hmm.
humanity and prove our
Hmm.
point. So part of what, like, very concretely, like, sort of like at a gut level, I wanted was the next time the woman of color gets asked, as I have been many times, and every woman of color I know has been asked many times to justify or explain yourself, to say, actually, I have a book for you. Here's the book.
Yes.
I do not need to make that my labor. It is not
Yeah.
my responsibility to explain why the world is unjust. I do
Hmm.
not need to justify why this is affecting me the way it truly is. Somebody else did the work here. Now you do the work of at least reading this. And stories are easier to read, so hopefully it won't feel like a big burden to have to read it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that was a very concrete, like when I was thinking like, what do I want to happen? I want people to hand this book to people who ask them to justify themselves. I
Yeah,
do
well,
not
if it
want
means
people
anything,
justifying.
yes. When I speak about the gift, if it means anything, I have definitely done exactly that with your
Woo!
book.
I love
Because it
that.
does
Thank you.
spare, to be able to
Thank
be like,
you.
what, go read this over. This captures so much so that I don't have to do
Oh,
that
thank you,
emotional
Whitney.
labor. So, no,
Oh.
thank you for that being out in the world for women of color to be able to direct people to instead of
Mm.
always having to expend that labor. So, I thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're coming up on the end here, but speaking of just the labor that went into this book and how it's such an amazing resource for people, you mentioned this, and thanks for that. I'm a newly published author myself, it took so long to put the dang book out that now navigating the season of the book being out is a whole thing. But now that it's been out for you, if you could go back in time and give yourself advice at any point in the process, what would it be?
Mm. I think one thing would be just like release the anxiety of the timing because when I was writing, I was like, it has to come out right now or it's not going to be relevant. This is evergreen, unfortunately, until we're in a different place in humanity. Like this is evergreen. So there's always a reason that what we share is valid and resonates with others. So I think that anxiety I could have
Mm.
let go of. Um, I did not realize that so much more work would be needed once the book was released. I just thought like, okay, once I find a publisher, I'm cool. Like, yay, it all gets done. No. So I think the fact that, I was working full time and it made it very difficult to try to get the book out. But again, and then I started having anxiety and sadness around like, okay, well, now it's just going to sit there. But it's been almost a year now, and I'm having folks like you like reach out and want to have conversations and just realizing time is a total construct anyway, and like we don't need to get stuck on like the months. I know that's what publishers say, so no disrespect to publishers, but uh, don't get anxious about things that have to do with timing.
Mm.
Because when there is a message and a story that resonates and that is true, you can keep bringing it back. And honestly, like what I
Mm.
have loved the most is conversations like this. And when I've done book events, seeing how it resonates with people and having conversations, and also just I've been astonished with the variety of people that are interested in it. So there have been book events that have been all people of color. There have been book events that has been all white people. There have been men and women and different genders. And there's been, times when it was all immigrants. That's been a gift back to me
Mm.
of recognizing, like people recognizing that just because this book is focused on women of color, which is also admittedly a very broad category, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to
Mhm.
focus on the system and
Mhm.
not a specific identity. Um, that's been really lovely to experience people in different parts of the country saying, I recognize that this is important for me to engage with. I recognize that while this may not impact me personally, this impacts the community that I care about. This impacts the type of world that I and my loved ones live in. And so I want to engage in dialogue. And those conversations have been my favorite thing. So I think I would have told myself, it's no different than anything else you've done. It's the relationships and it's the connection with humans that is going to make this really resonate and feel meaningful.
Ah, that's so beautiful. As you were sharing that, the word that was coming to me was interconnectedness. And
Yes,
so
that's
I
one of my
really,
favorite words.
yeah, I appreciate you lifting that up and that this book really is a resource to facilitate that for folks. So
Mhm.
I think it's just such a gift to the world. I really, really do. And those are all my questions, but I want to make space for if there's anything else you want to share as we bring this space to a close.
Mm, I think, especially right now, feels like the thing that we keep saying. But yeah, I think especially right now would invite especially people who don't have lived experience of exclusion or being othered, to read not just my book, but your book and other books like it that are amplifying voices of those of us who are, and I'm going to claim this, like courageous enough to tell our stories,
Mhm.
especially right now.
Mhm.
That a way to honor our courage is to listen. Like it
Mhm.
is one of the simplest and most profound things that humans can do is to listen to each other. So I would ask, would you listen to the women of color who are being courageous and sharing our stories, who are offering of ourselves, of our labor, so that we can create a new world for all of us that will benefit every single one of us now and in the future?
Oh, what a beautiful quote to close us out. A way to honor our courage is
Mm,
to listen.
yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Gabriela. And I want to make sure we don't close without asking, where can people find your book?
I always say this, but my favorite way is your local bookstore. So go to your
Yes.
local bookstore is the
Uh-huh.
best way. Libraries also have it. So if you can't
Mhm.
afford to buy it, go to your library. It is on ebook and it's also an audiobook narrated by an amazing Nigerian woman who speaks Spanish well. So she like also like pronounces things in the way that I wanted it because there's Spanish in there as well. So you can have it in three different formats, depending on how your brain likes to absorb
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
But I would, you can go to bookshop.com, I think it is, and that will connect you to your local bookstore because support local independent bookstores.
Amazing. And I have to say, I think I screenshotted you when I was perusing my store, local store, and saw yours there.
Yes,
It was just such
yes,
an amazing moment, such an
yes.
amazing moment.
And
So,
you actually connected me to a local bookstore in DC where I had an event, and it was such
yay.
a wonderful, beautiful experience. So thank you for that.
Hey, sisterhood. We all
Yes,
rise together. There's no
yes,
other way to do it.
yes.
So I really, really want to thank you for your time and just for sharing your wisdom and your expertise and your experiences with us. It really is just such an honor to be able to continue learning from you. And this book has been such a beautiful opportunity for me to do that. And I just really hope that as many people as possible absorb this as a resource as well. And honor our courage, your courage, by listening. And so this concludes our book talk conversation. And if I may, Gabriela, if I could invite you to participate in a cultural way that Service Never Sleeps always closes out every engagement or session that we do. So, as some context, we used to do a 72-hour service marathon during Dr. Martin Luther King weekend to show service never sleeping. We have learned rest is resistance. We do not do that anymore.
Yes.
But during our first one, about halfway through, so around hour 36, one of my sisters called and was like, "Are you all right? You must be exhausted." And I was like, "Girl, I'm too inspired to be tired." And that's our hashtag now, hashtag too inspired to be tired. To be clear, this work is exhausting and living in that both and that we spoke
Yes.
about. We
Yes.
love that it puts us in spaces with folks like you who give us this renewed sense of energy. So we always like to close with people's too inspired to be tired. So it's either I'm too inspired to be tired because of something from this time together, or I'm too inspired to be tired, so I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. So either I'm too inspired to
Okay.
be tired because, or I'm too inspired to be tired, so I'm going to do. I can start off for you as an
Okay.
example and
Yeah.
then hand it over to you. I am too inspired to be tired because I believe we met less than 2 years ago through collaborating around another project about women of color leadership. And it was just such an honor to be able to meet you and be sharing that project together. And so now to come back full circle to be talking about your book one on one is just leaving me too inspired to be tired, to be just so grateful to know you, so grateful for the ways to keep learning from you, all rooted in relationship as well. So that's leading me too inspired to be tired.
Aw, thank you. I'm too inspired to be tired because I have your book on my kitchen counter and I cannot wait to get into it for the same reason. It's just so beautiful, the full circle that always happens in life of meeting the way we did and connecting through our books. And I hope that I can also offer support and to amplify your book in the way that you have supported me and amplified mine. It's truly inspiring, the solidarity that we practice. So thank you.
Really awesome. Thank you so much, Gabriela. Get your copy of What Your Comfort Costs Us. It will be a gift to you and anyone around you who you gift it to so that this can keep having the ripple effect that it should. So thank you again, Gabriela, and be well, everyone.
Thank you, Whitney.